to be critic of what AI gives back, right? You need to be critic because just like the image banks we were talking about, images from AI, they're still.
Mario Henrique, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Likewise. So, started off in web design and marketing, and alongside that, you were artwork. What made you decide to go full into your art?
So I always painted, like throughout my life. I always painted. That's what I always draw. That's always something that I've been doing for pretty much since I was a kid. And at some point, I thought that it was time to change things a bit. So I worked in web design. I was a creative director for many years, and we sold our company. And at that point, I felt that once we achieved that, I pretty much achieved whatever it is I wanted at that time as a web designer, as a creative director in this case. So I decided to shift, and instead of having painting as a like a secondary activity, let's say as a hobby, I decided to move that to the first tier and make that my main profession, let's say.
So, is that when you started getting into art? Were you doing other pieces of artwork before that?
I mean, I always painted what I'm painting right now. Like I'm drawn to the human form. I paint people, right? I paint faces. I paint people. That's mostly what I do, and I've always done that. I mean, I guess you could say that my style, my approach, has changed throughout the years. My technique evolved. That all happens organically, let's say. But I always painted people. I always drawn people. It's definitely my favorite subject and what I'm most drawn to.
Why is that? Why people?
I mean, I can't really explain that. I am, most of all, I'm a figurative painter, right? So as a designer, I tend to work with recognizable shapes to do things objectively, as opposed to being like an abstract painter. My thinking doesn't work in abstracts. I have difficulty in terms of formulating the notion of emptiness, absolute emptiness, right? So I always need to see and think in objectives, and other humans are probably the most recognizable shape there is in the world for another human. Like you can recognize a human better than you can recognize a table or a tree or anything else. You're drawn to it. Like if you are in an open field and you have a tree, a table, or a human, you will look at the human instinctively. That's what's going to draw you with your attention. Like you are going to be curious about the human more than you are curious about the tree. Maybe I would say that happens with most humans. So I think humans have a natural curiosity to explore human reactions, expressions, behaviors. And what I do is I generally paint in large scale, right? So I do like large scale paintings. And what I do is I like to amplify faces so that you can speculate about, other meanings of certain expressions. You might see someone smile, but are they really happy? Are they melancholic? Once you get lost in their gaze, in their eyes, you start to find double meanings in the expressions, and that's what I really like to explore. So, I'm not sure if I answered your questions, why humans, but I don't have like a definitive answer. I can just say it's something instinctive. Like it's when I put my pen to paper or my brush to canvas, a face is going to appear like 99% of the time. I can't help myself.
No, you did answer my question. I think in your case, it would be fair to say, I think it's more of a neurological or a biological thing because we tend to relate to each other a lot more as opposed to, say, other animals. Like I said, with cats and dogs, yes, we keep them as pets, but if it's a life or death situation and we can save humans versus your pet dog, is more likely going to be your fellow humans. So I think it might be like more of a natural.
It depends on the humans in that case, but yeah, sure, I get what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean though. It's because we've got more of a natural.
You can't see it from where you are, but I have my dog sleeping in front of me right now. And while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, I would definitely save my dog, first, and instead of 99% of the people that I know.
Well, some people would. There's no denying that one. But I'm saying from a biological and evolution and survivability standpoint, we're more drawn to our own species. I think that may play a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, I get what you mean, and I agree. Obviously, it's for better or worse, we are, interested in each other.
Yeah. So I know you do a lot of portraits. Where do you find them as well? So is it how they look, the emotions they're expressing on you now, or do you literally just go on something like Pexel, which for those who don't, is basically like a free, not great, but it's a free photo downloader. It's got some nice ones on there. Or
Well, I mean, some of my subjects I photographed myself. Others I just find them online, and sometimes I have conversations on Instagram. If I see a face that I like, they may be a model or not. They don't have to be like professional models or anything like that. Sometimes I text them. I say, "Hey, I like this photo. Do you mind if I use that as a reference in one of my paintings?" I've used image banks, although they're a bit soulless. I think the images are a bit soulless, so you always need to add a little something. I do some sort of hybrid portraits, like for instance, I use Photoshop, just make these sort of weird collages where there's a face with someone else's eyes or someone else's body position. Like I make these Frankenstein figures where I steal different parts of different people, and I try to make this rough sketch, like the work of a serial killer or something like that. And lately, what I've been doing is I've been using AI to generate some models and to dictate what I want from them. So I, I like to use new technology, and I like to be like on par with what's possible. I always say that if Leonardo da Vinci was alive, he would probably use AI projectors, machines, everything, all the tools that is at his disposal to paint, like to create, right? So you shouldn't have those tools dictate your work, but you should use them. You should know they exist, and they are there to serve you. So what I do sometimes, what I've been doing lately, actually, I would say like the last half a dozen paintings, I generated my models. I basically created text prompts where I inputted what I wanted, what the type of person that I envision in accordance to the emotion I wanted to convey. And then I adjusted those models. I tilt the head, rotate the eyes, just make the nose like this, or make the light go on the other side of the face. It's what I do when I'm directing a model, a live model. It's what I do. But in this case, you're directing, a virtual being, and then I print them out. I glue those photographs on my studio walls, and I just go at it.
Before I move on to my next question, I was going to bring up AI because I think in your case, you'd actually, like you said, you'd benefit from AI. Do you use Sora?
I'm sorry. What was the last part?
Do you use Sora AI?
Sora? No, I don't use Sora. I use mostly ChatGPT.
Yeah, because I brought it up because I've played a bit with Sora where you just type in prompts and you can get photorealistic images of people. So I think in your case, AI is more of a benefit because you do a lot of physical artwork instead of digital. So you've got that as an advantage where some other artists I've had on this show and who I haven't are more threatened by the tech.
You need to be critic of what AI gives back, right? You need to be critic, because just like the image banks we were talking about, images from AI, they're still a bit soulless, I think. The technology is moving pretty fast, and one day you won't be able to discern what's real from what's not. Makes you ask, is there anything, what is reality? Like if you can't really distinguish, does it matter? I mean, that's maybe a conversation for a different time. But you need to add your own twists when you're painting. Like if you're using artificial references, either if they're made by AI or from image banks or whatever, if there's something that you didn't capture yourself from a live model or anything like that, you need to add your own twist. You need to add your own, you know, color, your little this and that, your bits of color, right? Yeah, that's a Russell Crowe expression that I like. Just this. When do you know Russell Crowe? He made, like, of course, you made the Gladiator and whatnot. The main actor from Gladiator, Russell Crowe,
I've seen Gladiator.
the Australian guy, Russell Crowe. You don't know Russell Crowe?
No, seriously.
Have you seen Gladiator by
Nope.
Ridley Scott?
Nope.
Okay, so let's stop this interview right now. Go watch Gladiator by Ridley Scott, and then we can continue the conversation. Okay, no, and I was just mentioning Russell Crowe because there's a point in the movie, in the opening of the movie, the director Ridley Scott. You're British, I can tell from your accent.
Yep.
So Ridley Scott is British as well. Is a Sir Ridley Scott. So and he tells Russell Crowe, an actor working for him, that I want you to look this way, and then you see a little bird flying by, and then you follow that bird with your eyes, and then you look back, and in front of you there's a battle that's going to happen. So I want you to do that. And Russell Crowe says that not only did that, but I added my own bits of color, which means that and there's that scene in the movie, and it's just an amazing 5-second scene where this is the briefing, and then he adds his bits of color, and his eyes, like his expression, it's something that he made his own. And all of this is to say that if you use artificial models, if you use image banks, that's all fine, and you should do it. Like they exist for a reason, but you need to add your bits of color, right? You need to make those references your own in order for the painting to work. Otherwise, you're in sausage factory, right?
I know what you mean, because I used to run a ambient sound YouTube before I started this podcast, and I would take pictures of the stock photo bank websites like Pexel. Yeah, they weren't great, but I guess in your advantage is if you use a model, you can, like an AR model, you can just tweak it a little. So if it looks a bit dull, you can choose the emotion, you can choose the overall. When you're actually making art, what is your process from start to finish? So you've come up and you found the model that you want to use. How do you translate that into a painting? How do you add the complementary contrast? I know some things you do is splatter. I don't know what a tool is, but it's when you've done I've seen you use on your YouTube channel with some of the other pieces where you've done the picture, you've taken the tape off, and you kind of scrape the paint over.
Right. So yeah, what I do is I always start with a splatter. Like I always throw paint at a canvas without thinking too much about it, right? So I want to start with some chaos. And, looking at where the painting falls on the canvas, I try to see, I have a general idea of what I want to depict, of what I want to paint. So I have some photo references, and I throw some paint, I add a bit of some layers, some color, and without thinking too much about it, right? I have an general idea of what I want to paint, but I want to add some chaos first. And then I start to dig out the figure from the blobs of paint. Like if there's an area with a bit more blacks or darker colors, that's going to be the part of the face that's going to be in the shade, right? If there's like a brighter area, that's going to be the lighter area of the face. And if there's and also it will dictate the size of the face, right? So if where the paint falls on the canvas, it's going to dictate if a face is huge or just a bit smaller. Then I'm going to add some shoulders. So I always start with a bit of randomness, a bit of chaos. And sometimes if I'm painting like a really, really big face and proportions are important, what I do is I project what I want to paint, and I do like dots on specific parts of the face, like the eyes or the corners of the mouth or the tip of the nose. I don't trace it, because if you trace an image, you can tell, right? It's, you're forcing the line. So you can tell more or less that image has been traced. It's just no fun, basically. It's no fun. So what I do is when I'm painting like a really big face and I need to be careful with proportions. I just like I do dots where the corners of the mouth is going to be, like the end of the chin, the tip of the nose, the eyes, things like that. And then I use the photos and I paint. I generally paint with oils and acrylics.
Okay, so I know what you say with the paint splatter that also you can premeditate where you're gonna chuck the paint. You can't premeditate where the splatters land. Does that add to the overall like chaos? You know what I mean? So if you
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each painting is a surprise, even to me, right? So it's like you have like a bucket full of blue paint, and you're gonna throw it at a canvas. You wanna hit the canvas. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes half of it hits the canvas, other half hits the dog or whatever. But when you throw paint, you aim, but it never falls exactly like you want it to, right? So that's basically the image dictating how it's going to be regardless of your technique. It's like the image has like a will of its own, and it's going to understand what you want, but it's going to say, yeah, but I'm going to go this way. So it's a game. It's a compromise between your technique, your abilities, and whatever is going on the canvas.
I suppose in your case, it helps keep your work fresh and original every single time, because if you're like with a paint splatter, with the randomness, like I say, keeps it fresh, because then you don't fall into the cycle if you're making the same thing over and over and over again. That's something I personally found with this podcast, where admittedly, I do find the process to be very repetitive. You've got that element where you can keep refreshing with every single piece of your work. Would you say that helps with the creative side of your
Yeah,
work?
sure. It helps for sure. It helps. It is true what you're saying. I mean, you do deal with repetition, but I think that's a good thing. If you had to learn to do a painting every time you do a painting, I mean, you wouldn't get better, or it would be too much of a challenge. You need to do something that you trust you can do at some point. So repetition is important. Like you learn from repetition, and you get better at it, and it's still a surprise, but you always need to be in sort of a control of what you want. You need to steer the painting where you want it to be. It's not going to go 100% that way. It goes like 70%, 80%, and that's fine by me.
What has it been like to, just conversation, but exhibit your work? Because you've done quite a bit of that. I forget the exact names. You've done quite a bit in Portugal in some exhibitions with solo and group. What's it like to exhibit the art piece, complementary?
I mean, it's a weird thing to see my paintings in galleries and then in collectors' homes, because you see them in your studio, and they are created within a certain scale, in a certain environment. At some point, you're surrounded by your paintings, and then someone comes, takes them away, puts them in the gallery, and there's like 100 people there to see them. Everyone has their own opinion, and everyone has their own references, experiences dealing with art, seeing art, and that's when you realize that that painting isn't yours anymore. That painting is the world's painting, right? So it's like I would imagine, like, I'm not a father, but I would imagine like when you have a son that lives and he leaves home, and you see, okay, so this is a little man. This guy is out in the world for himself. He needs to go to work. He needs to do whatever it is he does to earn a living. And when a painting leaves your studio and goes to a gallery or someone's home, it has a life of its own. You don't control it anymore. You don't control what people say about it. You don't control, if the painting is where it should be, in terms of, you have your own opinion in terms of, the position of the painting, or if you'd like to see it, under a blue, like a yellow light or white light, or if you'd like to see it with a white wall or blue wall or whatever. You don't get to say as much when the painting leaves the studio. So I like that surprise. I like to revisit my paintings in galleries and in collectors' homes, and then to see, how life's going. It's like meeting an old friend that you don't see for some time.
Because when you said it no longer becomes yours, you're giving it to the world. It's also like you're giving it to the world to be judged, just the same time as being loved.
Sure.
Yeah, because everyone's going to have their own opinion. When I looked through your work, for me, there were some pieces where I went, oh, I really like this one. And then there were a few where I went, for sure. But then everyone's going to have their own interpretation. The ones I like, someone may not like, and the ones that I don't like, someone might really like. And yeah, and then you're just putting it. Someone put this beautifully to me a couple weeks ago, where it's you're essentially putting your feet to the fire. So you're putting your own work out to be judged and criticized, but you're also putting your reputation as an artist out to be judged and criticized as well.
Well, I don't care too much about that second part. It is what it is. You are all, as soon as you leave the house and you go out in the street, you're putting yourself out there to be criticized. If people don't like what you wear, or if people don't like, it doesn't matter. So, when the thing about the work is, people are entitled to their opinion. They have the right to critique a painting, and you have the right to say, your opinion shit. You have the right, because not everyone knows what they're talking about, right? So that's a real thing. Like, uh, there's a one thing is an opinion, another thing is a critique, or a judgment based on experience acquired by watching different paintings, different exhibitions, traveling abroad. You can see when someone's talking about your painting and they know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that they have to like my painting. They don't have to, but you can see when someone is talking about what they know, as opposed to certain people that just say, I like this because it has blue in it, and so blue is my favorite color, and I like that, which is fine. By the way, it's perfectly fine. That's I love that simplicity. It works great. I in some ways I even prefer that thinking, that simple thinking, that I like this because boom. Because when people start to talk about the paintings and finding subjective meanings and whatnot, most of the times they don't know what the beep they're talking about, right? So they just want to hear themselves, they want to talk, and I really don't have much patience for that. So, and you can tell when someone understands what they're talking about. And usually these are people that are well traveled. They don't have to work in the arts, they don't have to be like gallerists or curators, but they have experience in visualizing things, in watching things. They are curious people, and I love those people. Like, curious people. Whatever it is you do, if like you look at a painting and you say, "Yeah, this reminds me a time that I, went to Alaska and I saw this and blah 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 blah." And it's an experience they had while traveling abroad to an incredible place. Wonderful, amazing. I love that. So you don't have to be a gallerist or a curator or an art critic to discuss a painting in depth. You just need to be well traveled. You need to have seen a lot, right? To go out of your comfort zone. That's the most important thing, I think.
What have you got coming up?
Right. So yeah. So I'm going to do a show mid-September here in Portugal, south of the country, a gallery that I work with called Art Cato. I'm going to do a show there. I'm still exhibiting in a gallery here in Lisbon, in a place called LX Factory. It's like a trendy arts place, and there's a gallery there, a really nice gallery called the Last Mark Gallery, and they have some of my paintings there. They sold quite a few, but there's still my paintings there. And I have a new collaboration coming up this year still, where I'm going to be represented by a gallery in Germany. So not sure if I'm supposed to disclose that much about it, but Germany is a big country. That's all I'm going to say for now. So a gallery in Germany coming up before the year's end.
Well, luckily for you, your episode will be out by that point, so yeah, so you don't have to worry. Mario Henrique, everyone. Where can people find you, social media wise, if they want to learn more about you?
Well, just type Mario Henrique. Henrique with an H at the beginning of Henrique. It's not like Enrique Iglesias, that he doesn't have an H. I have an H. So Mario Henrique, and if you type like mariohenrique.art, you're going to find me on Instagram. You're going to find me on Facebook. And of course at mario-henrique.com. That's my website. You can just go there, subscribe to the newsletter, because that's one of the best ways to learn about new paintings, exhibitions, and whatnot.
If you want more art related content, then check out one of my earliest episodes of Roscoe Britton right here. Oh, and also check out my episodes with the AR artist Dot right here as well.